Why does ignoring always work? The psychology of relationships. In this video, we will talk about ignoring, why it works, why some people try to use and manipulate ignoring in relationships, and what to do if you find yourself in such relationships. So, let's break it down step by step. What is ignore and how to use it? Ignore as a manipulative tool. Ignore helps a person achieve control over another person. So, a situation arises and you want to do something, for example, but your partner wants something different. You can't come to an agreement, and at that moment, ignore happens. Your actions, words, and deeds might be ignored, meaning you become almost non-existent to your partner, because you are not acting in a way that is necessary for them. And at this moment, either you take action or you fall into the manipulator's trap. So, he can now control you because you can't handle the ignore. Moving on. Punishment and intimidation. The manipulator uses ignore as punishment. You acted the way you wanted to, but the manipulator wanted it differently. And now he is punishing you with that very ignore. And on top of everything, there is also intimidation. For example, if it is a relationship with a manipulator, the person who acted as they wanted now understands that the relationship might break down because they did not do what their partner wanted. This punishment and intimidation help, let's say, trap the victim, because now they can be manipulated. Very simple. Next are manipulative emotions. That is, when a person is made to feel guilt. An action that seemed ordinary and simple to a regular person did not please the manipulator at all. For example, he would like his partner to act differently, and at that moment, the ignore happens. And the victim who ended up in these relationships now feels overwhelmed, feeling guilt for acting according to their own wishes, but not according to what the partner wanted. So, if you recognize yourself and your partner in these descriptions, then you understand that this is what is happening in your relationships. Either you do what he wants, or you get ignored, and there's no other way. And with this ignore, the manipulator achieves all of his goals. That means you do what he wants, you speak the way he wants, you dress the way he wants, you go where he wants. Otherwise, you get ignored. And this ignore becomes a difficult emotion for you. Why does it work? First, it's the fear of loss. Because when ignore happens in relationships, one person goes silent, doesn't talk, walks by as if they don't notice, as if you don't exist. Either you don't live together and just communicate, and he disappears, doesn't write, doesn't call, and at this moment, the fear of loss occurs. How does this manipulation work? Now you will do things you didn't want to do, but you will do them to avoid losing your partner. And this manipulation is very powerful. It works. And the manipulator may resort to it often when they see that this manipulation works on you. And this is, let's say, the strongest fear, the fear of loss. Moving on. Guilt even if you didn't feel guilty when, for example, you went to a cafe with a friend you hadn't seen in a long time. Your friend invited you, and you didn't inform your partner, although you should have, but you simply forgot. And now there's ignore. Now he is ignoring you, and you feel guilt for not calling, not informing him. Perhaps you have a situation where you needed to ask for permission, meaning you have that kind of relationship, and now you feel guilt. What happens next? Next, you start talking to your partner and promise that it will never happen again. And now, thanks to the fear of loss and the feeling of guilt, you won't just avoid going out next time, for example, with a friend, but you will also try to avoid such moments to not experience this ignore again. In other words, this is actually a very strong manipulation. Next, the desire to regain control of the situation. That is, you start doing things you wouldn't have done before in order to regain control of the situation. You now admit, for example, that you are guilty, even though you do not consider yourself at fault. You start begging for forgiveness, even though you don't feel guilty, but you perform these actions, and at certain moments you don't even recognize yourself a little. In your normal life, you wouldn't behave this way. This means that now you are being manipulated to the point where you start doing things that are even unexpected for yourself. This indicates that you are under the influence of manipulation by ignoring. So what should you do to exit these situations in an environmentally friendly way, without breaking yourself, your inner world, or your psyche? The first thing you need to do is understand the reasons why you are being ignored. Just sit down, don't rush to do anything, don't rush to say anything, just sit and reflect. Why are you being ignored right now? Is it because you tried to stand up for your opinion? Is it because you didn't do anything wrong, but you believe you are right, for example, and so on? Write down what has happened in your relationship right now. What are you experiencing right now, and what actions is the ignoring prompting you to take? You will see unexpected things. Next, what needs to be done? Defining boundaries. So, now, sitting and looking at what you have written down, think about whether it is acceptable for you to be treated this way. Are you ready to stretch your boundaries so much that the interference becomes so strong that you, for example, do things you don't want to do or feel emotions that, in principle, you shouldn't feel if you believe you haven't done anything wrong? Establish your boundaries and think about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable for you. You can also write in 2 columns. What is acceptable in a relationship and what is not? If you see that your partner's behavior is unacceptable, then you can talk to them. Ask direct questions. Why are you using manipulation by ignoring? Why don't you know at all how to talk at all? Why do you make me feel guilty at all when we could just talk about it at all? And then direct questions often make a person feel, let's say, uncomfortable because for some reason asking direct questions is difficult for people, even though simple questions actually provide the very solutions. Make it clear to your partner in this conversation that you will not engage in such actions, that this behavior is unacceptable with you, and that it's either this way or, for example, no way at all. In other words, your partner should feel that there is no other option. The next time he wants to ignore you, he will think that it might be the last time, and then he will already be experiencing the fear of loss. So, discuss with your partner what is happening in your relationship, that it is unacceptable to you, and you do not want to experience the emotions he is making you feel. Then your man will hear what you are saying and understand that these manipulations do not affect you. That is, if he wants to maintain the relationship, he will choose other methods of communication with you. Moving on. Avoid the dance of ignoring. For example, when a man starts ignoring a woman, and the woman responds by ignoring him back. This moment, you are not solving anything, but only making it worse. You start recalling all the grievances from everyone around you that happened ages ago, and meanwhile, the problem drags on. Instead of sitting down and talking, do not act as expected. Do not try to make amends for your guilt, but speak up. Talk about what is happening, talk about what you are experiencing, talk about what your partner is making you feel, and then the situation. They start to change. And also, if you realize that you cannot cope with this ignoring, reach out, either to a specialist or to some close people like your mom or a friend who can support you and see the situation from a different perspective. That's all I have for this video. This was Alice Fardomskaya with you. I hope for your likes and subscriptions. Write in the comments what you would like to discuss in my new videos. Don't forget to hit the bell, and goodbye everyone.